Hey everybody, it's Naya from EcoWellCo. Thanks again for tuning in to my content here. It's funny, actually, I had already recorded this episode on talking about the difference between a linear and a circular economy, but I did it outside the other day here in Philly, where it has been consistently windy for like the whole past week. So of course that content is not usable, even though in and of itself it was a great video. So I am now here to redo it. Hoorah to that. I guess, as they say, better late than never. So here we are. So as promised, and as I clearly really want to, I want to talk about the difference between the linear economy and the circular economy. So just to let you guys know, this topic is going to be broken down into smaller videos for the simple fact that as I was going through and doing the research and writing up my notes and my thoughts about these things, I realized that it's a complex topic, and it's simple to explain and simple to understand, but it's very complex, especially how it plays a role in our daily lives, how we think about things, our lifestyles, the ways in which businesses operate, just like everything that we can really think of. I mean, a linear economy is a way in which a society is operating, which, as I will get into shortly, is the present economy in which most of the world is experiencing. And to switch economic styles and or systems, it's better yet call it systems, it takes a lot. It takes a shift, not just on a policy and a monetary level, but also on a behavioral level, from the community, being the business community, which is made up of human beings, and of the community in terms of people in and of themselves, how they act and how they do things culturally as a community, and also on the individual level, what the person individually decides that they want their life to look like, what type of behaviors they want to instill in terms of their buying habits, in terms of what they support and what they do support, in terms of how they plan their dollars. So again, the economy is going to be about money, right? So that's why I mentioned the money part. So to get right into it, the linear economy is as simple as the word explains. It's linear. It's in the shape of a line. And in the linear economy, you have raw extraction of resources being the cradle. Then you have the production process, which is also going to include delivery. You have the consumption process, and then you have disposal, and also known as waste. So you see it's from extraction to disposal. That's the linear economy. There is another economy called the recycle economy, which is derived from the linear economy. It has the same exact setup, but except it might have like one or two rounds of, say, reuse, refurbishment, or recycling of a product. Depending on what the product is and depending on how the product was designed, perhaps it can have 1, 2, or 3 lives before it reaches its final destination, being waste and or disposal. So as you see, both the linear and the recycle economy come from extraction to waste. That's it. As I mentioned before, the majority of the various global systems operate in this mind frame of extraction to disposal. And what we see going on in the world around us, especially when it comes to creation of air pollution from industrial practices, from all these delivery trucks, from delivery planes, from everything that we ever do, for looking at how different production practices are outsourced based on the industry. So industry is going to be the clothing industry, the toy making industry, the plastic industry, the steel making industry, the toiletry industry, like just stuff like that, right? Everything is different per industry, but every majority of these industries follow some sort of linear and or recycle based economic structure, where there is extraction of resource, production, consumption, and disposal, and as I mentioned before, in the recycle economy, some type of reuse or recycling or refurbishment. So you do see sometimes, like in the computer industry, as you do see sometimes in the industry, being like the computer, the digital, the electronic industry, there are some businesses that are existing that are like, okay, we'll take your e-waste products and we'll use them for something else. But also a lot of times is as you begin to explore this topic, and as I continue to dig into this topic, e-waste is also a really, really big thing that occurs around the world, and oftentimes e-waste, amongst other type of waste, is shipped to other places for processing, which Maybe they might reuse some of the materials in that, but a lot of times, a lot of that waste just sits and piles up. Just to let you guys know, as a sidebar, there are all different types of documentaries, resources, and everything like that that are related to these types of waste production methods, especially from the clothing industry to the digital industry. So there's a lot of stuff out there, which I will link on my site on Patreon so that you guys can have access to these resources to tap into and to learn to learn more for yourself. Okay, so I've explained the linear economy and the recycling economy. Just to note, I didn't get into how these impact lifestyles yet. That will be video number 2. For this video, I just wanted to take the time to just explain what they are in terms of how they look, how they appear. So I will be posting some diagrams so that you can also get a visual of exactly what that looks like. And eventually, and as you can imagine, how you work into this usually is the consumption part. But there is a lot of power in the consumption part, meaning where you as a consumer place your dollars. So we'll get into the importance of knowing where your dollars are going, deciding what you want to support and what you don't want to support, and how you as a consumer actually have way more power than we may be taught to have or even understand to have remotely. So to get into the circular economy, it's not going to be a straight line, as you can imagine. It's going to be a circle, okay? So the circular economy is going to be raw extraction of resources, production, consumption, reuse, recycling, refurbishment that is now seen as its own resource, which then goes back into the production cycle, consumption cycle, and again, and again, and again. So I didn't mention waste or disposal at all in the circular economy because it doesn't exist. Now, as different economies throughout the world and or throughout the whole world, as people decide that they want to switch into a more circular or refurbishment, recycling, reuse economy, is there still going to be waste in some capacity? Yes. It takes a long time for any of us to switch to anything. It's a habit, like it's a 21-day habit, but there's a lot more into it, right? So than just me deciding I want to wake up and have a habit of saying 3 things I'm grateful for every day. I mean, sure, I can do that. But when it comes to switching economic systems and structures, obviously that's going to be a little bit more complex, as it's going to take policy, willingness, and a lot of monetary discussions, and also digging into the existing systems and how things can be changed. But aside from that, I want you to understand that the circular economy is literally a circle, and it does not include waste and disposal. So what's interesting about this is that it poses the question, how are you able to create something in a circular economy so that it has more than 1, 2, 3, or 4 lives to continue to be deemed as a valuable resource that can be used again and again and again? Well, the answer to that lies in the production cycle, meaning how that product is designed and what it is made of, and also the value that that product is assigned during the raw material extraction process and during the production process, and also what type of value that material is assigned to the consumer. So a lot of times what we don't realize, which I'm only going to mention this a little bit because I don't want to get too carried away. I know how I get sometimes. But a lot of times what we don't also realize as consumers is how we're being influenced by marketing. All different types of things are marketed to us. So if I go back to the linear economy for a second, let's just say, ooh, you know what? Here's my favorite thing to talk about. That piece of cucumber you decided you want to pick up from the grocery store that is wrapped in its own special piece of plastic. I really want to get into this because for me, when I go grocery shopping, I am often baffled how many raw fruits and vegetables are packaged into single-use plastic goods. So I'm going to assign a word to the linear and typically for the recycling economy being the production of single-use products. And what happens in a single-use product system is that they are given an assigned value for a period of time in which eventually it is going to find its way in the trash can. So that piece of plastic that is wrapping that one cucumber that you want to get, it has its purpose. The piece of plastic has its purpose, right? So the purpose could be to prolong its freshness over a certain period of time. That's generally what they're used for, to prolong freshness, to make sure it's not contaminated by other things. A whole load of things could be the purpose of that piece of plastic. But I pose this question. Could that piece of cucumber be wrapped with something else? Yes, it could be. Because where's that piece of plastic usually end up at? In a trash can. I often want people to think about something when it comes to purchasing products and even looking at the waste that you produce on a typical day-to-day and or weekly basis. If you ever take a moment to, while you're grocery shopping or just shopping for anything in general, take a look at what your products are packaged in or what your trash can consist of. This could be very telling of what exactly is going on, like what you're buying, what you're purchasing, whether or not you have a choice or not to choose. That's a completely different topic for our next video. I mean, that just can show you exactly what is being produced in our economy, and then what, when we really think about it, doesn't really have to exist in order for us to enjoy the products that we are enjoying. So that piece of plastic in which your cucumber is wrapped in is a single-use product. It is made for one purpose, to be wrapped around that piece of cucumber and to be disposed of, in which for everyone to know. And I, shout out to University of Maryland, because they had this saying on all of their trash cans throughout the entire campus. Throwing that away, ? There is no away. Because in truth, there is no away. Only thing that there is a landfill, in which is out of sight and out of mind for a majority of people, that just collects more and more waste, and eventually that landfill gets full, so then they cover it up with more dirt and put more stuff on it. So as you can imagine, and they usually put some sort of like tarp on the bottom so that like as things begin to break down, they don't seep into the soil, the groundwater, or whatever, or the air, whatever that may be. But I guarantee you that it does it anyway. And a lot of things that we throw away, when they do begin to degrade, if they can degrade, it is not something in which you would want in your body, or the natural environment would want it in its body. It's something that is extremely toxic to the air that we're breathing, to the water that we need, and to the ground, to the soil in and of itself. And these things tend to get into the soil regardless of any type of measures that we try to take to make sure that they do not. So remember, when you're throwing stuff away, there is no away. And the linear economy is 100% based on demand. Thus, demand meets supply. And if you're creating something for one single use, and that single use is to later throw that thing away, you can imagine that eventually you're going to need that thing again and again and again. So that same thing that is designed for one use in a linear economy is demanded over and over and over again. I'm not even talking about like everything that goes into creating that thing that you want, or how much natural resource has to be extracted to create that thing that you want, or the designs that go into creating that thing that you want. But the linear economy is based off creating single-use products that eventually wind up in the trash can, in which you eventually will need again, and which you eventually will buy again as a consumer. So whether what we consciously or subconsciously know what's going on, how we're being influenced, whether or not we know we have choices or not, what we're advocating for, whether or not we know what to advocate for to begin with. I mean, in no way, shape, or form am I shaming anybody in this video, so I hope that nobody feels shamed. But I just want to bring to light the importance of understanding the difference between this linear economy, which is really much so based on single use of products. Another thing that I like to bring up is the use of styrofoam. Now, styrofoam is probably one of the most toxic things that we can put into the natural environment, or even like when we heat things up in styrofoam, just like heating things up in plastic, which I'll talk about that another time. A lot of the chemicals that are existing in those products get into the food in which we're about to ingest, which now exists in our body. There is another documentary in which the name is slipping me right now, but eventually I will find that, and I will also link that in the resources section for you guys to be able to view, spend some time learning about. It is about plastics and just how they rampage throughout our earth system and throughout our bodies in aggressive amounts. It's actually quite scary. It's a great video, so I'll find a link and link it to that. But to wrap up and to recap, okay, so I talked about the linear economy, the recycled economy, and the circular economy. The linear economy is going to be raw extraction of resources, production, consumption, disposal, or creation of waste. The recycled economy is going to be raw extraction of resources, production, consumption, perhaps maybe one or two uses depending on the product, disposal, and or waste. The circular economy is going to be extraction of raw resources, production, consumption, reuse, recycle, refurbishment, then production, consumption. So what that means for the circular economy is that it eases pressure on the amount of natural resources needed to be extracted at a given period of time. It can constantly meet the demand needed for any type of product we may find based on how things are designed. And the consumers can have way more options and way more consciousness based on what they're putting into their body, the different chemicals that are existing in their body, and how things are impacting them just based on changing how things are extracted, what types of things are extracted, and how things are designed to last again and again and again and again. And of course, there is no waste in a circular economy in an idle setting. And also, things are actually designed with the environment and the human, being you, in mind. So thanks so much for watching this video. Do stay tuned for video 2 to drop in the next week. So again, I wanted to break this down for the simple fact that this is a complex topic. It can be easy to understand, but in order to learn how to even remotely apply it to yourself, or maybe how to advocate for different things, advocate for different types of options in your grocery store so that you don't have to succumb to the only choice of getting that one time that cucumber wrapped in plastic. Yeah, I know that's a totally separate concept that I want to break down for another time, versus having you guys watch me talk about this for like an hour, which eventually maybe that'll happen, but for right now I want to kind of give you guys bits of information piece by piece. So anyway, hopefully that makes sense. If you have any questions or concerns, be sure to shoot me an email at ecowelco@gmail.com, or you can leave me a comment, send me a DM, or visit my site on Patreon and join the community, join the conversation, and leave me comments there as well. Thank you guys so much for watching, and as always, namaste, God bless, and stay safe. Peace.